Hey. So, we're going to talk a little bit about man-in-the-middle attacks. I spoke a little bit about this on Crowdsource the Truth in relation to some of the 9/11 papers and how it might not really be what it seems, and this might be a huge scheme to actually infect a whole bunch of people in a creative way, we'll just say. So anyway, let's kind of check out some things about man-in-the-middle attacks. So as you kind of see from the picture here, here's your computer, here's you, and you like to connect to the internet or whatever the websites, the chats, whatever you're connecting to. But a man-in-the-middle attack works like this. Instead of you making this direct connection across this original connection, they pose as both sides. So to you, they pose as the destination, and to the destination, they pose as you. So you send the data, they grab it, they read it, maybe edit it, alter it, and then send it along the way to the destination, and then they receive data back from the destination that's supposed to go to you, and they do the same thing. They read it, they check it, they edit it maybe, they alter it, and then they send it back to you and make it appear as if they aren't even there, and you just have a seamless connection with the internet or with the server, whatever it happens to be that you're connected to. So again, that's kind of the basis of what I think of what a lot of hacks, I guess, come down to today. There's a lot of free Wi-Fi out there, and it's so common for someone to just set up out there and basically put out a man-in-the-middle attack. If you see a guy just sitting on a park bench and there's a free Wi-Fi around, and he has a backpack or something, or he's on a laptop maybe, and there's a USB thing plugged into it, there's a chance that he might be trying to set up a man-in-the-middle attack and sniff your Facebook password, your banking data, should you be foolish enough to ever log into anything over free public open Wi-Fi. But man-in-the-middle attacks are super common. So here's kind of the Wikipedia definition, so we all know it's official. In cryptography and computer security, a man-in-the-middle attack, MITM, is an attack where the attacker secretly relays and possibly alters the communication between two parties who believe they are directly communicating with each other. One example of a man-in-the-middle attack is active eavesdropping, in which the attacker makes an independent connection with the victim and relays messages between them to make them believe they are talking directly to each other over a private connection, when in fact the entire conversation is controlled by the attacker. So, man-in-the-middle, like I said, these are pretty common things. If you can read more about this, obviously, but let me lay the groundwork for you about some stuff. Here's actually, these were kind of interesting. These are some notable instances of man-in-the-middle attacks, and these aren't even necessarily done by like prominent hackers, because the first one I'll show you is when the NSA disguised itself as Google to spy on people in a recently leaked document. If a recently leaked document is any indication, the US National Security Agency, or its UK counterpart, appears to have put on a Google suit to gather intelligence. And this is from September 12th, 2013. And I'll give you a little bit of it. It says, here's one of the latest tidbits on the NSA surveillance scandal, which seems to be generating nearly as many blog items as there are phone numbers in the spy agency's databanks. Earlier this week, TechDirt picked up on a passing mention in a Brazilian news story and a Slate article to point out that the US NSA had apparently impersonated Google on at least one occasion to gather data on people. Brazilian site Fantastico, wow, I should read that, obtained and published a document leaked by Edward Snowden, which diagrams how a man-in-the-middle attack involving Google was apparently carried out. And they say, they kind of define man-in-the-middle for you. A technique is commonly used by hackers. A man-in-the-middle attack involves using a fake security certificate to pose as a legitimate web service, bypass browser security settings, and then intercept the data that the unsuspecting person is sending to that service. Hackers could, for example, pose as a banking website and steal passwords. The technique is particularly sly because the hackers then use the password to log into the real banking site and then serve as a man-in-the-middle, receiving requests from the banking customer, passing them on to the banking site, and then returning the requested info to the customer. All the while collecting the data for themselves with neither the customer nor the bank realizing what's happening. And again, they just detail more stuff about, you know, what is happening, what they do. So here's another example of, you know, a company using this on customers, you know, paying customers. It says, help, my Belkin router is spamming me. And this was and this is from 2003, November 7th, 2003. So these ideas have, like I said, been around for a long time, and this ability to kind of like hijack a device, it's been around for a long time. But they say the marketing geniuses at Belkin, the consumer networking vendor, have dreamed up a new form of spam: ads served to your desktop by way of its wireless router. It says a former Belkin wireless router user was perplexed to find machines on his network redirected to an ad for Belkin's new parental control system following a software update. Clem initially thought the browser setting on the machine he downloaded the update software had been changed, but when other machines displayed the same behavior, he realized his router was to blame. The router would grab a random HTTP connection every 8 hours and redirect it to Belkin's advertised webpage. It seems the router now supports a parental control, and the market droids at Belkin got the bright idea of equipping the router with an intrusive nagware. Of course, I have this strange notion that routers should pass data unmolested by marketeers. So again, this is a major company that is purposely infecting their hardware to try and more or less sell you something else of theirs or make you upgrade. Here's another one, Comcast. Comcast, one of the biggest internet providers in the nation. Comcast using man-in-the-middle attack to warn subscribers of potential copyright infringement. So again, if they're warning you about copyright infringement, they're actively looking at what you were looking at. How would they know that you're potentially infringing? So again, an interesting one. And it talks, again, this article just kind of talks about, you know, the woes that this may cause. And then same thing, Comcast still, let's go back to, when was this? November of 2015. This is December 2016. Comcast still uses man-in-the-middle JavaScript injection to serve unwanted ads and messages. And we have another one. Oh, out of order. Okay, December of 2017. Comcast continues to inject its own code into websites you visit. So, again, this is something that's been around for a while, being able to inject these things and make you go to places that they control or make you do things. So, so when it comes to maybe a hacking group doing such a thing, who's to say that, again, they aren't putting a Trojan on your device, or maybe they are putting a crypto miner, which is something I had brought up. So here's the thing, can my computer mine cryptocurrency? I can tell you back in like 2011, like that's all that you were able to really use was like a CPU, a PC CPU. You know, the GPU stuff was not exactly what it is today, and I don't even remember when GPUs, I guess, became the thing to use. I had the shortest foray with Bitcoin. I had a computer I just let run a miner, and that was it basically. And then I grew bored of it. You know, it wasn't really, you know, didn't accumulate much Bitcoin, and you know, it wasn't worth it to me. So eventually that kind of went by the wayside, got formatted or got moved, got done, lost, whatever. But it's gone. So that's what you use though. You used a PC CPU, or whatever CPU. It didn't matter, I guess, if it was a computer. But can my computer mine crypto? Yes, of course your computer can mine cryptocurrency. Processing on your computers, or piggyback on your processing power to confirm transactions and generate potentially new lucrative coins. So will you mine Bitcoin, by brand, Bitcoin brand or whatever? No, you're going to mine Monero. You're going to mine a different kind of currency that eventually you're going to, we'll call it Craigslist Joe, trade yourself up to a better currency. Like a Bitcoin or whatever, something more widely accepted, I guess. But, so, exactly, what do people ask, if these are common searches, basically, or these are searches that enough people are going for that Google feels that it's helpful to suggest to you if you're searching for something like this. So then again, what can you still mine with a GPU or CPU? Mining does not always require much investment in time. So, and this is a fairly recent article again, December 2018, and it just talks about the problems with the mining businesses, and the problem with mining used to be that the electricity cost outweighed the amount of Bitcoin that you would make. So it just wasn't worth it. It didn't pencil out. But again, they're talking about new kind of altcoins that you can actually mine for with a CPU or even a GPU, obviously, and you can even mine them with your phone. What? Say what? You can mine it with your phone even as you sleep? So you can be in Bitcoin mining pools and use the processing power of your phone. As I'm sure you've heard, according to NASA, the processing power in your phone is far more sophisticated than that of the space shuttle. And I mean, shit, that was great enough for NASA to get us to the moon back in the 60s. So I would assume that your iPhone or your Android phone could mine a whole bunch of coins, right? Maybe not. But point being, you can actually mine things with your phone. There are apps for this. Let's see. Okay, so now, how does this get dropped on your phone? How does this spread? So let's talk a little bit about botnets. I had briefly brought up the Kaiten botnet. So, and this is an old description, but this says, this bot lacks a spreader. Not true anymore. And is also written for Unix and Linux systems. The weak user authentication makes it very easy to hijack a botnet running with Kaiten. The bot itself consists of just one file. Thus, it is very easy to fetch the source code using wget and compile it on a vulnerable computer using a script. So wget it's a Linux command. It's a command basically that wants you to connect to a website, or basically connect to something and download a file or get a file from the web. We'll call it webget. So Kaiten offers an easy remote shell, and what a remote shell is, think of it like an open connection, like you called the computer with your phone and you're able to send it commands, you're able to control it, from far away. So it's saying that you can open a shell and basically you can scan this machine now for further vulnerabilities, and then escalate your privileges and control it even further. So botnets are things that again are pretty common. In Kaiten's a really common one that, as I'll show you, gets rewritten a bunch. So this is from August of 2016, and this guy's a security researcher, and he's talking about how this is, he says, I'm going to tweet about interesting things I've found in the new NSA, what is that? Oh, equation group dump in this thread. So if you're not familiar with the equation group dump, with the ShadowBrokers and such, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but, and it not necessarily relates to the Dark Overlord, but it you'll kind of see what I'm saying. So 2016, this guy is talking about this release. They have this program, it's called Eligible Candidate, and it exploits a vulnerability in HTTP, which is websites basically. Think of it that way. It exploits a web vulnerability over a specific port or a specific protocol that's used. That's common for people. So anyway, he just goes through and talks about how how this thing has been upgraded and it's actually different now, and it looks like somebody's using this to exploit Cisco routers. And Cisco's obviously a really big company, and they make a lot of the hardware that is used for internet infrastructure. And what he ends up talking about in here, he gets down and he shows that, like, the whole Pakistani government, I might have passed already, but he shows the whole Pakistani government basically got hacked by this botnet, and this botnet controls the servers of the Pakistani government. And he more or less tweets to them and says, like, hey, you guys might want to check this out. This is, like, not a good thing for you. But some of these things are actually, I believe, what came out was there were NSA tools. So that was like what? And so again, Kaiten IRC bot rewritten. So just and again, you can find the source code for, if you know how to read C or whatever. But you can find source code for all these different bots with all these different upgrades. This one here was posted 2 years ago, but he's saying it's a Kaiten rewrite, new functionality, many fixes for the old stuff. And this is what interested me the most, because he says that this is a rewrite with new functionality, and it's tailored toward embedded Linux devices. So that might not mean anything to you, but what that means to me is an embedded Linux device is usually an Internet of Things device. So Internet of Things, again, would be like a smart TV, a smart refrigerator, a smart appliance that connects to the internet and somehow interacts with a server, and then feeds you content or feeds you messages or pushes you messages of some sort as reminders or warnings. So these things obviously have functionality, have processors, have cameras, have the ability, I'm sure you've heard about the Samsung TVs that were spying on you. Is your fridge watching you? Was an article that was written, it was kind of funny, but written a little while back. These are all things that are real that just kind of get, passed by the wayside or never get reported on, or do get reported on, but just it doesn't spread. People don't listen to this stuff. They don't care. They don't understand it. They think it's way above their heads, but it's a little bit of reading and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what you can glean from it, and at least start to understand. But so again, 2 years ago, this guy had rewritten this. So imagine what changes in that time. But so he's just talking about how he just basically hacked together a bunch of different people's versions of Kaiten rewrites and kind of took all the best pieces, added his own pieces. He says he's even added awesome shell one-liners, and again, the remote shell was something people are trying to get because you can execute commands remotely on someone else's device, computer, TV, what have you. And he says he's included a thing called a hack package. So basically what he's turned this into is like a point and click tool where you can just kind of type 1 or 2 commands and it does all the legwork, all the heavy lifting for you. So it's interesting that these things, it's still around, because again, here's an article from September 2018 saying that there was a new variant of Kaiten, and this is going to be a little, well, I won't even get into about the processors and stuff, but Kaiten had to be rewritten eventually because things are upgrading processors to, or not upgrading processors, but people are moving away from the 32-bit obviously and on to 64. If you're still on 32-bit, like, there are problems, there are big problems. So there's these newer versions of Kaiten that have been better written for newer architecture. But again, then, so this is about one of the NSA hacks with the ShadowBrokers, and the ShadowBrokers are a lot like, I shouldn't say this, but a lot like a less successful version of the Dark Overlord. It says, this week a hacker group going by the name of the ShadowBrokers has surfaced and appears to be auctioning off computer exploits it claims are stolen from the Equation Group. The Equation Group, a group of hackers believed to be operated by the National Security Agency, was named by Kaspersky after their analysis of APT activity leading up to 2015, according to Wikipedia. what this basically means. So you can look at the equation group as like an offset of the NSA, like a secret, whatever, I guess, a secret, like, offshoot hacking group that answers to the NSA. I don't know if that's what it is exactly or not, but if you go back to when was this one? I think this was really recent. This was like the other day, I thought. No, where's the date? Oh, maybe not. That's right, they got hacked again recently. So this just talks about the tools that they leaked. There was another very prominent breach a while back of a group called Hacking Team, and Hacking Team got hacked. Go figure. And what Hacking Team actually was is they were an Italian company who made spyware and such for law enforcement agencies, for governments. They basically made software to help break encryption or things to trick criminals into opening up their systems so that we'll call it the good guys, could go in there and find the goods and arrest them. So Hacking Team got hacked and exposed, and Hacking Team had been accused originally of selling their, we'll call it anti-privacy software, because again it was made to basically spy on you, but they got accused of selling it to oppressive regimes, and they claimed that they did not do that. They said, we didn't sell anything to Sudan and Iraq and these other countries. We only sold to like the FBI, the U.S. government, the Italian government, the French, the UK. We only sold to those people. And so when they got exposed, it turned out, no, they sold to a lot of oppressive regimes. They sold to, I think there was even maybe terrorist. I can't remember. I shouldn't say that. I don't remember if that was true or not, but I know that, like, linked to terrorist ties, basically, or linked to countries who have terrorist ties. Again, Sudan being one of them. So this was a major thing because number one, they lied, and they were also helping oppress people. So you can't do that. But so we talk about the ShadowBrokers a little more, and this is kind of what they did. They had the same sort of prerogative and the same sort of approach that the Dark Overlord has. But again, these people had it years earlier than the Dark Overlord. They would essentially, not ransom, because ransomware might not be the exact right term, I guess, but what it is you're holding them hostage in a way. You're basically saying, I'm going to do this if you don't comply. And you're effectively making them make a choice whether they want to have their data leaked and themselves embarrassed, or they want to pay up and meet your demands and hope that you're a criminal of your word. But it's okay, of course. This week, a hacker group going by the name the ShadowBrokers has surfaced and appears to be auctioning off computer exploits. So I read that part. And we see some tweets that they've listed. They talk about their cyber weapon auction, and it says on the 13th of August they announced the leak of this data, which stands out from other leaks because it appears to be a teaser and an advertisement to promote the online auction of a larger portion of data they got a hold of. So again, they are promoting their hack so that they can make what you'll find out later is Bitcoin off of this. And it says the leak and auction announcement has been posted to various sites, including Twitter, GitHub, Tumblr, Reddit, Imgur, and Pastebin. It says how much you pay for your enemy's cyber weapons, not malware you find in networks, both sides, remote access Trojan. Full state sponsor tool set. We find cyber weapons made by creators of Stuxnet, Dooku, Flame, Kaspersky Calls Equation Group. So if you're not familiar with what Stuxnet was an interesting thing. Stuxnet was a piece of malware that was apparently created by the US government to specifically target Iranian nuclear Iranian facilities that were trying to develop nukes and enrichment facilities, basically. And when Stuxnet was analyzed, it turned out that it was so specific. It was literally so specific that it had to have the right amount of PLCs in there. They had to be in the right configuration. And there was, I think it narrowed it down to literally it could only be two, absolutely only two possible locations that this specific piece of malware was trying to target. Out of all of the plants in Iran and all the plants in the world that got infected with this Stuxnet malware, it would only attack if you had this specific configuration. And again, there was only two places that did, and they were both Iranian nuclear facilities in Iran, or Iranian nuclear facilities. So what ended up happening was the malware would try to speed up the PLC, and the PLC is a programmable logic controller. It's basically just a computer robot that you can send a command to and it can do something, whether it's it spins a servo or it lifts a flap, but basically you program an action into it and you send a command. So these ones, they rotate because they were trying to enrich uranium, so they have to spin at centrifuges or whatever. They have to spin at a certain RPM, and if they go too fast, then they overheat, or they can start to wobble if they're not on there perfectly, and they can cause damage. And it turned out that the Iranian facilities were having to replace a whole bunch of these PLCs and these like centrifuges or whatever, these things that were supposed to be enriching their uranium. They were replacing them far too often for what the actual life length of these things should have been. And that was the tip off that, that this must be the one, like this is the one that's affected. So this leak is basically the tools that the people who made Stuxnet, again, Stuxnet is pretty advanced. This is the leak of those people's tools that they created. So this was a huge thing. But so this group, the ShadowBrokers, tried to auction it off. And so this was interesting to me too. So it says, they're basically saying, the NSA equation group is what we hacked. It says, we follow the equation group traffic, we find equation group source range, we hack equation group, we find many equation group cyber weapons, you see pictures, we give you some equation group files free, you see. This is good proof, no? I should have been reading this whole time in like a Russian accent. You enjoy it. You bring many things, you find many intrusions, you write many words, but not all. Let's say we are auction the best files. Jeez Louise. So it says the data was uploaded to several sites, including Mega, Kim.com site, which shows that it was last modified on their system on the 1st of August, further suggesting they have had it for some time. The auction, while we have increasingly seen the data from hacked companies be put up for auction, it is rare to see this big of a teaser posted publicly. Again, this is just like the 9/11 files, how... Oh man, this camera's garbage. It's just like how the 9/11 files were set up, because the Dark Overlord is trying to generate interest. They're trying to generate buzz, and that's exactly what the ShadowBrokers were doing. They just didn't do it nearly as well as the Dark Overlord, because they provide their Bitcoin address here, and we could search that later, obviously. But same exact thing as the Dark Overlord, basically. It says the equation group teaser data includes a significant trove of exploits designed to compromise firewalls. This data alone has incredible value to a wide variety of companies, both offensive and defensive. The hacked data release came with an FAQ and a set of instructions for the auction. Again, like they're almost better at trying to do their PR than they are at actually hacking. It seems like this should have been good, but they were ahead of their time, I guess, maybe. But it says the FAQ states several interesting points. Question: why I want the auction files? Why send Bitcoin? Answer: if you like free files proof, you send Bitcoin. If you want no networks hacked, you send Bitcoin. If you want no networks as like Equation Group, you send Bitcoin. If you want reverse, write many words, make big name for yourself. Reverse, what? If you want okay, whatever. If you want reverse, write many words, make big name for self, get many customers, you send Bitcoin. If you want to know what we take, you send Bitcoin. Wow. Let's see if that'll clear up at all. Probably not. What is in the auction files is secret. Equation Group not know what lost. We want Equation Group to bid so we keep secret. Again, same thing as the Dark Overlord. They want the deep state to basically pay so that they'll keep the secret, or they want the public to bid on the files. You bid against Equation Group, win, and find out, or bid pump up price, piss them off, everyone wins. So he's also saying to, even if you have no intention of winning, you don't think you can win, bid anyway, because it'll raise the price and the Equation Group will have to pay extra so that the shadow brokers can get more money, and everyone's win-win, because then supposedly they can finance themselves to bring us more hacks of this nature. Says, what if bid and no win? Get Bitcoin back? Sorry. Lose bidding. Oh, answer. Sorry, lose bidding more, lose coins and files. Lose. Bid to win. Oh, wow. So this is also a crowdsourcing effort too, just like the Dark Overlord. Again, this is 2016. This is years before the Dark Overlord did this. I just wish they would have written it a little more eloquently. Maybe I don't wish that. So again, he says, instead to losers, we give consolation prize. If our auction raise 1 million Bitcoin total, then we dump more Equation Group files, same quality, unencrypted, for free to everyone. Question, when does auction end? Answer, unknown. When we feel it time to win. Keep bidding until we announce winner. Like, okay, now that is pretty ridiculous, because so I'm just gonna bid and they're just gonna keep an open line, basically just sucking up Bitcoin until they decide it's time to release, or someone calls them out and says, hey sir, I checked on the public blockchain and it looks like you guys are pretty close to 1 million now. Can you release those files? Like, yeah, right. Last question. Why should I trust you? Answer, no trust, risk. You like reward, you take risk. Maybe win, maybe not. No guarantees. This could be hack, steal, jail, dead, or war tomorrow. You worry more, protect self from other bidders, trolls, and haters. Oh, wow. So it says the exploits data is a little over 256 megabytes and contains both the teaser data as well as the data being auctioned. While both are encrypted, the shadow brokers only provided the password for the teaser data, and only the auction winners presumably received the password for the rest. So I did not actually download the files for this, but now I'm interested to see, what were they encrypted with? Were they also encrypted with Veracrypt? And then when you go and do the forensics on it, like the one gentleman did, and he found the desktop INI file, for instance, that kind of pointed at whoever had packaged these files. I'm speaking of the Dark Overlord now, in regards to the Layer 1, again, the security analyst who authenticated, you could say, the files from Layer 1. He basically said that there might have been a trail left, which again was a desktop INI file, which is obviously a Windows file, and that kind of shed some light on possibly what this guy was doing. It didn't mean much, actually, because it could have been a virtual machine that was used. It could have been a number of different things, but it was peculiar that the person had decided to use Windows to do this, as opposed to Tails, which is something the security researcher had noted. But again, I wonder if the shadow brokers have also used Veracrypt and Veracrypt containers and such to kind of encapsulate this release, or if they use something different. Or I guess maybe, I don't know if TrueCrypt was around back before they changed over or not, but this might be the same thing. Again, the shadow brokers might be the Dark Overlord. It might just be the same thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. This was an interesting thing too, again, that that felt a little weird to me, because when the ShadowBrokers leaked their stuff, this DC leaks here about George Soros got like nothing, got like absolutely nothing. So this is something you guys should probably check into, but again, it was released too close to the time, or it coincided too much with that NSA hack, I think is what it was, and it just kind of screwed up the reach of this leak here. So a little bit about the ShadowBrokers. First appeared in 2016. They published several leaks containing hacking tools from the NSA, including several zero-day exploits, O-day exploits. Specifically, these exploits and vulnerabilities targeted enterprise firewalls, antivirus software, and Microsoft products. The ShadowBrokers originally attributed the leaks to the Equation Group threat actor, who have been tied to the NSA's Tailored Access Operations Unit. Interesting. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaks. Interesting. 5 layers of leaks. So let's just go to the speculation. I love speculation. Obviously, that's what I do. NSA insider threat and whistleblowers. So something about this, actually. People believe that this wasn't really a hack, that this was an insider, kind of like how Snowden did it, how more or less someone stuck a USB drive in there, copied the things, and dipped out. It says James Bamford, along with, I can't read that from here, Matt, some speculated that an insider, possibly someone assigned to the NSA's highly sensitive tailored access operations, stole the hacking tools in October 2016. The Washington Post reported Harold T. Martin III, a former contractor for Booz Allen Hamilton, accused of stealing approximately 50 terabytes of data from the National Security Agency, NSA, was the lead suspect. So here's the thing, though. Booz Allen Hamilton got rooted out a long time ago by LulzSec, which again we started to talk about on Crowdsource the Truth, but again, an hour is not nearly enough time to kind of go in depth on all these things that sort of set the stage to show you why I think the things I do. But again, Booz Allen Hamilton had been hacked a long time ago, and I'm sure that there were backdoors left in there that were unknown to them at the time, or unknown to others possibly. So this guy stealing 50 terabytes now, to me, that could even be a ploy or a cover, and all this data could have been stolen a while before that, again, years before that. Anyway, it says the ShadowBrokers continued posting messages that were cryptographically signed and were reviewed by media while Martin was detained. So again, totally mirrors the Dark Overlord, because there's been a number of arrests of people who claim to, or have, what I should say is the FBI, the UK authorities, the Serbian authorities, they all basically say these people have Dark Overlord ties, yet the Dark Overlord is still posting and basically laughing and saying, like, those aren't our guys, what are you talking about? So the ShadowBrokers were doing the same thing at this time in 2016, saying that they continued posting messages. They were also using their PGP key, basically same thing the Dark Overlord does, of course, to verify that it is truly the Dark Overlord, or again, just the person who knows the Dark Overlord's key, posting these things. And again, of course, there's a theory that ties it to Russia, but you can't ever, I don't know, you can't believe anything that you can't believe anything you trace on the internet. So let's see what else. And it says this second source, this is talking about the second NSA leak that's referred to as like second Snowden, and they're also trying to lend to the theory that the ShadowBrokers are kind of a front, and that it was an inside job of someone who did this. Anyway, more interesting stuff. This kind of stuff fascinated me. Might not fascinate you like it does me, but if you want to hear more, let me know, and I'll do more of this. Otherwise, the next dig is going to be probably back into the Bitcoins. This one here was another interesting one, again, because this is in April of 2017, and it's talking about the ShadowBrokers, how they basically, what was it here? They had requested 7 million basically in Bitcoin, but nobody paid up. Again, they had also talked about there was these 7 unknown NSA hacking tools that they had claimed to release. And I think they're actually what the 7 dwarfs were. I think some people have misclassified that as 7 dwarf servers maybe, but I think it has to do with these 7 dwarf tools, or I may be wrong, speculation of course, but anyway, we're just gonna leave it at that for now. That all of these things kind of again lead me to believe that these 9/11 files aren't exactly what we think. Again, 9/11 Truth is the vehicle to bring us to the Dark Overlord for a second purpose, or for an ulterior motive. If the stuff in the files are real, which would be great, which would be awesome, then cool, more power to them. But they've been very, very specific about all they care about is money, although they've done some things that lead me to believe it's a little weird, because they say you got to have this much, and they go back on their word and release something anyway, even though they might not have hit those specific echelons and thresholds of Bitcoin amount. Hey, do I care? No, cool. I want them to keep releasing stuff. I want to keep seeing the files. So if you guys got Bitcoin to donate, feel free. Go ahead, do it. I've donated the tiniest, littlest bit. And, whatever. Like I said, it's been interesting to dig on, because I think a lot of our confirmation biases are taking us in specific directions, and I'm totally fine with that. That's the first direction I was going to go anyway. I know already what I want to find, so I'm going to look for it, and if I don't find it, all right, well, crap. Okay, on to the next thing. I know the second, third, and fourth thing that I want to find too, and if those aren't in there either, well, hopefully another layer will be released by then, and I'll get to start the search over again, and you guys will get to see that stuff too. So anyway, man-in-the-middle attacks, which again lead to how you can spread a botnet to create kind of like a huge cloud network of your own that's secret, that other people don't even know about, that they're part of, and then you can use something like a Kaiten derivative to hop on there and control it. Again, escalate your privileges, load something even more malicious on there, whether it be a Trojan to steal all of your photos, documents, passwords, or again, some sort of crypto mining software or what have you app that slowly but surely trickles a little bit of Bitcoin in. So it might not sound like a lot coming from one phone, but again, if this thing can propagate like I believe it can, where it spreads and spreads and spreads, and there's a lot of methods now for phones to spread to each other besides just being connected to the same Wi-Fi network. There was actually even a hack that uses the flash of your camera, and it actually sends out Morse code, and was able to actually code out a message. It was one of the ways that people were stealing data through an air-gapped system. Because they were, it wasn't connected to the internet. How was it able to get this data out? And it was because it was able to blink Morse code and receive that. Anyway, so that, like I said, there are some crazy methods for stealing data that people don't even consider, I think, and they're so stuck in their ways, and they just, again, they believe their own confirmation bias. And again, I understand I have confirmation bias, but I'm open-minded enough, I think, to realize, like, hey, it could be something else. I'll leave you with this. Aside from like, share, subscribe, please, I would appreciate that. But this is what I'll leave you with. My favorite quote is an Aristotle quote. That is, the mark of an educated mind is someone who can entertain a thought without accepting it. So, again, if you are stuck in your ways, you'll never see the truth. Again, that's it for now. I'll see you soon.